Joining us now is John Zogby, pollster, Zogby Polls, and CEO of Zogby Analytics, and John McLaughlin, partner with McLaughlin and Associates and Republican pollster. Gentlemen, the breaking news right now, as we await the first primary results from New Hampshire, is that they may have to keep some of the polling places open longer because there are traffic delays and long lines in various places around the state. So let me ask you, John Zogby, they both gentlemen named John, who does that help and who does that harm?
Well, you know, on the Democratic side, it only spells out more and more to me that a huge night for Bernie Sanders. Someone, you know, an establishment candidate like Hillary Clinton wants as low a voter turnout as she possibly can get so that the party apparatchiks and her team, you know, can get out there their own vote. You know, on the GOP side, I've got to endorse pretty much everything that Senator Simpson said. I'm also looking to a big night for John Kasich as well. And, you know, an underperformance, a victory more than likely for Donald Trump, but an underperformance as he did in Iowa. So I'm going to just suggest on the basis of turnout and then what some of the early exit polls are saying, you're going to see Trump, I think, at about 25, 27%. I think you're going to see Kasich hitting 20 to 22%, in which case then it's a huge night for Kasich.
John Zogby, do you have the early exit polls you could share with us?
I don't have any performance numbers.
Okay, just who voted and all that. Okay, John McLaughlin. Let's assume that John Zogby is right and Kasich does have a big night, and Alan Simpson is right. Well, first of all, tell us if you think Trump is going to underperform, and if Kasich does have a big night, does that necessarily mean much for him going forward?
Well, he's still going to win, Donald Trump, but he may underperform a little bit. But I think the real story is the pileup for second, third, fourth, and fifth place, and you may have five candidates, even sixth, where you may have six candidates moving on with some degree of momentum, which only helps Donald Trump going into South Carolina, because Trump's running at about 3 in 10 voters, or a third of the voters, and the rest of the field is split. So everyone was expecting the field to winnow down after New Hampshire, but if you've got Kasich, and, you know, I don't know if he's going to get 20, but if he gets in the mid-teens, etc., and you got Rubio and Cruz not far behind, and Jeb Bush not far behind, and even Chris Christie in double digits, then they're all going to go to South Carolina. And instead of New Hampshire winning the field, South Carolina may. Plus, you could get Ben Carson. Ben Carson could attract conservative Christian evangelicals into the Republican primary and leave the Democrat primary, because you know, the Democrat primary is a week later, but they may decide to vote in the Republican primary.
Agree, John Zogby?
Not entirely, although enormous respect for my colleague, John McLaughlin.
That's all right. You can feel free to disagree with each other. That's all right.
But the way I'm looking at it is number one, the worst news for Trump and Cruz are Cruz and Trump, in that order. What happens is the two of them cannibalize the western part, South Carolina, the Christian conservative part. And as John says, if Ben Carson is in the race, even worse for conservatives. Now, somebody like a Kasich or a Jeb Bush emerges doing well going into South Carolina, could have kind of like the McCain effect in 2008, where they've got pretty much the central and eastern part of the state to themselves. And then one very important point that Senator Simpson made, and that is about young people. The eastern part of South Carolina, the capital, is not your grandfather's South Carolina. There's a lot of millennials, a lot of 30 and early 40-somethings, more moderate, even conservative, but don't want to talk about a lot of the older social conservative issues, made to order, I think, for a Kasich or a Rubio, particularly if the western part of the state is cannibalized.
John McLaughlin, let me ask you about Hillary. She gets trounced tonight. She won a 0.25% victory in Iowa, and by the way, they won't release the raw vote. They say it's not what they do, yet they did it. in 2008. I have the raw vote in front of me. I mean, everybody expects that she'll do well in South Carolina, but is that necessarily true? I mean, could Sanders really do damage the rest of the way, or is this going to be his high point?
Well, I think it's you're going to see him doing damage. But the interesting part is the majority of voters in South Carolina are African American, and she was expecting that to be her firewall. And President Obama is, in a way, still sitting on his hands waiting to see what happens. So, and as you already mentioned, Bernie Sanders is going to meet with Al Sharpton tomorrow on his way to South Carolina. So if she doesn't do well in South Carolina with the African-American vote that is closer than expected, then she's got big problems, because then you're heading into the March 1st states, where you get Georgia and Texas and these other states. And if the African-American voters don't help her out like the way she's expecting, that'll really put a torpedo in her, and then Sanders could be on his way to winning the nomination.
Gentlemen, great to get the insight of two such well-respected experts, John Zogby and John McLaughlin. Thank you both. We'll speak to you again soon, gentlemen.
Thank you. Take care.
My pleasure. All right, folks, up next, Newsmax Chief Washington correspondent John Gizzi on the ground in New Hampshire. He will join us live, and then your phone calls at 877 Newsmax, so make sure you start calling now to get in and talk to me.